Hey dreamers. I keep forgetting to change the introduction message before I start these lives. Because this week's theme is completion. Hi Toffee. Usually I'm sitting down for these lives and Toffee gets in my lap, but now she can't do that. So she's meowing at me. What is it? Wanna come up here? Say hello. You comfy now? So this week's theme is... Oh, you're done, aren't you? This week's theme is completion. And I decided to add something to my live. I want to grab some sticky notes because as I keep notes, or as I'm thinking during the live, I want to take some notes for myself so I remember what I'm talking about and what ideas I come up with as well. Because for each of my themes and for my week, the lessons I share, I want to document them. I put them into my blog at the end of the week as takeaways, as lessons. And I noticed, for some content pieces, that's easy to do. Like if I'm writing an article, because the article's right there, it has everything in there. But for things like my TikTok lives, I'm doing all the talking and thinking and it's staying in my head, but it doesn't go anywhere unless I remember it. Which is why I want to start using some sticky notes and see how that goes. Because I have been trying, I've tried different versions of TikTok lives over the last couple of months. I started with building Lego because it's something I enjoy doing. So, having people watch and just enjoy that peace and quiet, It's kind of like co-working together. I'm doing my own thing working on Lego, you're doing your own thing, doing whatever, but having someone there helping out. So I'm gonna grab a pen and some sticky notes. Oh, I've got lots of pens and lots of sticky notes. I got this 5-pack lately, which has been great. Because when all the sticky notes are the same color, it's fine. Like you're catching the same information, but I find that having different colors, it's helpful in two ways. One is obviously you can categorize things according to the different colors, but without the category, you still have a pattern that you can create. And I'm just looking at sticky notes I have up on the wall over there. Because what I like about it is the content as you put the sticky notes together forms its own idea. They don't need to be the same color, but just the pattern of those colors is helpful. Yeah, so I was talking about my TikTok lives. So I did Lego to start, then I played Minecraft, and I did some tarot readings. And one thing, hmm, okay, I need to chill because my writing is not good at the best of times, but trying to do it on a sticky note like this is trash. Hmm. I have a writing pad somewhere. Let me try that. I'm all for trying out new ideas. So let's see if this makes any difference. So I started my TikTok lives with Legos. Then I did tarot and Minecraft. And now I'm doing this series. So the notes are for me, but I might come back there for reminders. When I started doing TikTok Live, I wanted to figure out how it worked, what to do, and I didn't know what I wanted to talk about on the lives. So that's why I started with Lego, because Lego was something that I could just work on and be present with. Following an instruction, listening to some nice music, and just, doing something fun. And so that helped get me to grips with the environment of doing lives and setting up the camera and all of that stuff. And so I did 3 of those because I find that doing 3 of something is a good way to test, how you get on with it. You can do something once and get on great and say, oh, this is perfect. Thanks, Simon. But sometimes you can try something new and it's just not a good fit, and so you leave it. But I like to try things 3 times to make sure that I really am sure if I like it or don't like it. So that's why I did 3 lives for the Lego, and I left that there because I finished building my bonsai. The second thing then was tarot, and this is like another level of that 3 things. Hi everyone. Shiv chicken? I don't know what that means, but happy birthday, Kian's mom. Hi Morgan. Hi Shane. So the Lego was the first one. The second was tarot, and this was kind of like the second attempt in a different set of 3. Because with the Lego, I'd sort of figured out the basics of TikTok lives, and I'd seen how much engagement I got and what kind of comments I got. So I went to try the tarot, which is a very different activity to do on TikTok Live. And I did that 3 times again. And I found that I was getting very different engagement from that. Hi there, cat lady. So I noticed that there was a lot more comments, there was a lot more engagement. There was obviously more talking from my perspective. I found that with the Lego, that like I didn't put pressure on myself to talk, but every now and then something would come up and I would just chat away about hobbies. And that was a way of getting comfortable with chatting on camera. And so then for the tarot, I was talking anyway, and the cards were like a stimulus to for storytelling. And so I finished those three. And then the third set I did was Minecraft. I played Minecraft on lives as well. So I got to play the game, enjoy the game, got a taste of streaming, and I saw very different engagement from that. So by this point, I had 9 lives done, and they were over 3 different areas, and each one I had done 3 times. So I had a very good idea of how live works, what the engagement was like, and also what I enjoyed doing on live as well. So I then came up with my idea to do these ones where I'm just talking about a particular theme because it is one of 9 pieces of content I do during the week. And it's an opportunity just to talk about stuff. You know, I've got my articles where I write, I suppose, opinion pieces, but they're very, I suppose I write them and I put them out there, and then that's kind of it. And if there's engagement after that, whatever, you can chat away to people in comments. But doing video then obviously is a different medium, especially when you're on live and you've got back and forth comments with people and you can engage in a conversation about something. And so I wanted to make sure to include that because what I noticed from doing the TikTok lives was that I enjoyed the back and forth part of tarot. I didn't want to just be like telling people everything. That's one thing I didn't get from tarot was sort of the reflective piece on my own, which I did get a little bit with the other two, Minecraft and Lego. And I wanted that reflective piece to be in these lives, which is why I decided to just do them as conversations, basically. And so this week's theme is completion. And it came at a funny time because, well, not a funny time, but it came at a good time, really. So I'm on week 9 of Kiki's Big Dream Experiment, and it last Sunday, the 30th of November, was also the end of this first 6 months of Kiki Dreams Big, which I had been calling, I have kind of broken the year up into 6-month increments that I call arcs because a year is a long time. And 6 months is a good way to break up the year. And I kind of had always broken the year up into 6-month increments anyway because my birthday is in the summer. My birthday's in the summertime, and so the new year comes like 6 months later. And the school year is September to June, and you kind of have that broken up into various pieces as well. So it was a good time to have because we don't really have that measure anywhere. You know, we've got months, we've got seasons, but we don't have a like 6-month thing unless maybe you want to look at the solstices. which I haven't thought about before, but that is something I can look at. Just taking some notes for myself. Because I'm trying to figure out what the theme is altogether. That's why I put a theme on the week and what I want to figure out from the content pieces that I'm creating. Because I want to figure it out for myself to like dig really deep. I also want to see how it fits into Kiki's big dream experiment, and then how I can break that out into a system to share with people. So yeah, with the stories I've been talking about so far, I've been thinking about like what is saying that something is completed, you know? And I like the starting off point of doing things 3 times. And I liked the way that the TikTok lives have evolved here by doing 3 different things 3 times each to give me 9 altogether. And I've been big on numerology and looking at patterns and numbers, and I've always liked maths and numbers. And of course, numbers 1 to 9 are the digits. The only other one that's missing is 0. And so 0 could be nothing, but it could also be everything because, you know, if it represents a 10, like I play Dungeons and Dragons, so one of the dice you play with is a D10, a 10-sided dice. But the 10 side it's just a 0 because of printing, you know, but you can't roll a 0. It's a 1 up to a 10. So the concept of 0 is interesting because it's both nothing and everything, because it's a circle. But it's also nothing if it's empty. These post-its have not been great to stick to the wall. So I've been taking pictures when I've put stuff up. I think the fact that they don't stick to the wall is probably a good thing, because then they won't stay up there forever and I have to deal with them in some way. So I want to take them and put them into Obsidian on my computer. But I find that like doing it from a computer is it's not very stimulating, because everything is so ordered and you have to like drag things around and you have to figure out what you're you have to figure out what you are trying to build before you can build it. What is this? Getting some weird notifications on the live. Weird. What was I saying? Yeah, the thing about the sticky notes is you can get just a small idea and like stick it to a wall and then move them around, which is great. I found when I was working, we did a lot of visualization like this, a lot of planning, you know, drawing on a whiteboard as well. just to get ideas out there so you can see like how they fit together, because I'm quite a visual person, so I, build things in my head, but when you've got multiple things that you're trying to build, it can be difficult when they're all like on the one page, let's say. And I've been looking to find tricks like this, like sticky notes, and I've got some cards as well and paper that I've been using to draw out these ideas. And I've been this week I've kind of been looking at like all of the things that I do and how can I build a system for it that helps me get unstuck, basically. Because I found like with my TikTok videos that I come away from them and I've explored the theme in some way, but I don't have anything to like work with afterwards. I have my recordings and I kept the recordings of all my TikTok lives so that I could kind of go back and examine them. Which I might do. Well, I think I will be doing. The obvious difficulty is, if I do a live for an hour, I have to sit down for an hour and go through it. So that's why I wanted to do the sticky notes now, to capture some ideas that I talked about. And at least I'll have them when I move on when I finish the live. Where is I have another sticky note that I have by my desk. Seems to have fallen off at the moment. I'm going to see if I can find it because I want to show you. Okay, I can't quite find it. Oh, it's up here. I forgot I was using it yesterday. On my TikTok videos, I talked about these archetypes that I use, and they're they're kind of work personas. And they originated because, actually, I'm going to write some of this down because I kind of I know the story anyway, but I don't have it actually written down. So when I started Kiki Dreams Big, I went back to kind of what I know, which is like software development stuff. So I started with like all the main tasks and projects that I wanted to work on. They kind of fell into 9 buckets. Things like, God, it's been so long now. I'm trying to remember, but like my book, my content creation, business, learning, well-being, those kind of things. And I put them all together into my task management. So I had the nine of them. But I wanted to give them all kind of equal weight in a way, because they were all equally important for life. The difficulty, I suppose, is that, day to day, certain things are going to take more time. Like if you work and you work 8 hours a day, that's a third of your time gone to that. So if you're trying to do 9 different things, one of them takes 8 hours, then you have 8 hours to do the other 8, and then 8 hours to sleep. And I kind of wanted to break them down so that they were a bit more even in a way. So I created these archetypes, these personas, because when you're working, you're learning, you're building systems, you're doing things, you're reflecting on what work has gone past. You get into the flow of working, you talk to people, you tell stories, all of these different things. And so those 8 hours are not just one exercise, they're a combination of all 9. So I created the archetypes, which are just abstractions of. They're kind of like personalities or personas or roles, I guess is another word that you could use for them. And so I was looking at how to break them down, and I found that every time that I went back to it, I realized there was a different way of looking at those 9 together in harmony. And I like to take inspiration from kind of everywhere. If I see something that's interesting, I'll make a note of it and it might come up later. So one of the things that was interesting to me was, the personality types. Personality types is one. I've looked at Myers-Briggs and the 16 personality types there and how they break down. And I've also looked at things like star signs, astrological houses, and related them back to numerology in some way. And so I have 9 archetypes representing the numbers 1 to 9. And I've given them an order that works for me. But I found that it doesn't always start in the same place. It depends on the type of task I'm doing. If I have this story of, let's say that I want to learn how to drive. I know how to drive, but I'm using that as an example because I've been through it. So I want to learn how to drive. How do I do it? I need to do something. I can't just sit there and it'll happen. I have to go do something. So the first thing I might do is to book a theory test. The first thing I might do is to get a book, or sit in the car with someone and they can explain to me what's going on. What are all the pieces? They're all different things you can do. Just start with whatever one stands out. This next bit after that is to build a system for how you're going to move forward. You can't just blindly do things and expect it to happen, because eventually you'll hit all of the things that you're supposed to do. Book the theory test, sit the theory test, pass the theory test, get your license, do your eye exams and all the other things, and then do your lessons, and then do your exam, and then get your full license. And yes, you have to do those in a certain order because you're restricted in that way. The system forces you to do it in a particular order. But the way that you actually get about it, you don't need to follow the system's way of doing it exactly. You can sit into a car and have someone show you everything and talk through it as they drive. And that's a really valuable way of learning because you're in that experience. And that's something you can't get just from reading a book. But you don't need to do that piece in the car at all. But it can be helpful if you do. And this is why I come back to the 3 things. Do things in 3 different ways and you'll see which ones kind of work for you. Because I found for the theory test, you have to answer all these questions. So my thing was, okay, let me answer let me get the knowledge to answer the question so I can pass that, because that's the first thing I need to do in order to get into a car and try it out for myself. So my point was, I was breaking down something like learning to drive into these, they are steps, but they're kind of like a framework, which is why I wanted to have an order to these archetypes. And I was looking at the personality tests, not the test itself, but the structure of it, and numerology structures as well. And I came across the Enneagram, which is a 9-pointed personality type. You know, you're one of 9. And I was looking through them and I was kind of like, I mean, depending on the day and the hour, I embody a different one. And I can't remember which one it said I was, but I was looking at them all thinking, I mean, I could be all of them. And that's when the idea came to me to use that Enneagram as a blueprint a little bit, and to give order to the archetypes, because they're all in there. You know, those 9 things that I started with for my project work, they're all things that were inside of me that I wanted to do. And they all represented an archetype because I designed them to. I gave them a language that made it a bit easier to abstract them, because depending on the topic I was looking at, one might be bigger than another. Like if I look at writing a book, for example, you need a bit of structure, you need a lot of writing, you need, I don't know, how much do you need to talk about it or to embody, like writing a book? Probably not much at the start. But then as time goes on, once you have a lot of writing done and you've got structure, if you hit a block, what do you do then? You have to go and do something different, because you've reached the end point of where you can go with that. So you do something different. You look at another archetype and say, okay, well, what can I do in this area? And that's why I started thinking of them as a cycle. And what's my sort of natural cycle? And I came up with this order, which I don't know if it's going to be backwards. Yeah, it'll be backwards. So 1 is up here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hey Tam, a brony as in My Little Ponies? So I came up with the order because I realized that a lot of the stuff I do fits into that order. I guess it depends what you mean by a brony, because I like the universe of a lot of kid shows and the imagination stuff. So there's a lot of that creative side of things I like from My Little Pony. I don't know any of the actual story or the TV show. My favorite show varies. At the moment, I've been looking back at some of the old shows that I've watched as a kid, and at the moment I'm rewatching Shaolin Showdown, which has been, God, I don't know how long it's been since I watched it. But I go through phases of what my different favorite shows are. Yeah, it's it's so long ago. I don't even remember what year it came out. It must be like 2006 or 7 maybe. But I like the universe that they create. You know, they don't kind of get too worried about the universe building at the start. They just like launch into it and you just immediately are in a place where, oh, okay, there's these things called Shengang Wu and they just exist. And we're figuring out what they mean along with the characters as well. So I was looking at the archetype system and trying to, because it was a circle, you know, it's this cyclical order. It is complete in a way, but I was trying to translate that to like reality and like doing something. And I think that a way that I would mark something complete is by like doing one round of the cycle. It doesn't necessarily need to start at one. It doesn't need to start at one. But if it goes in the order, and this is what I'm trying to look at now, is the order important? And I think it has been so far, and I think it will be going forward. Because I sort of know the steps to get from one to the next. And that can be a complete thing on its own because like if I start with one is doing something, two is building a system for it, three is making meaning of that system, four is expanding it and bringing in new ideas, five is reflecting on like the path that you took, six is then learning from what you have picked up along the way, seven is embodying that, eight is expressing it, and nine is telling the story. So it goes from like doing something small all the way up to like bringing it into your life properly, talking about it with people, sharing it. And building the story is the last bit because each step along the way is, well, it's a step in the journey, and it's only once you get to the end that you can look back and say, oh, this was the story that happened. And life is full of all of these cycles. We can get so muddled by them that there's so much going on that we don't step back and break it down into the small pieces. And that's what I'm trying to do here because it helps for breaking down the big things, like the big ideas, the big dreams. That was the purpose behind starting Kiki Dreams Big, is trying to find out what do I want to do, but then also how to do it. And you know, I started, one of my dreams when I started this was to write a book. Another one was to create a business. And the third one I realized was something I only had words recently, which was my voice, to have my voice and know what my position is and how to talk about things. And that's why I've been doing these kind of videos. That's why I do articles, that's why I do daily TikTok videos, that's why I do podcast, write poetry, whatever else. You know, they're all different creative things that show me what my skills are, basically, and how all of those skills interact together. Because when you get stuck somewhere and you don't know where to go next, it's tough, because you can feel like you've been doing everything right so far. And then it just stops working. And you're like, what have I done wrong? You haven't done anything wrong. You just have sort of like got to the end of that. You've exhausted sort of all your possibilities there. So you have to do something different. You have to look at things in a slightly different way. That's why I was doing the post-it notes, because I had so many things in my head that I was trying to figure out, and I just needed to externalize them somewhere. And the moment I externalized them, I noticed that like two sections of the wall were showing things in a different way. One was, so with Kiki's Big Dream Experiment, I have these flows. Hey Denny, how are you? I have these flows which are they're sort of creative energies in a way. So when you're very creative and you know what you're doing, you just kind of do it. You get busy with your hands and your other stuff, and you know what you're doing. So that's creation. Exploration then is trying out something new just to see what it can give you. And manifestation then is trying to like unblock yourself from it. And so I had put those out, but I noticed then another part of my wall was a cycle, a triangle. So just having those two visual things to compare really helped. Let me get back to you in a minute, Dinny. So, yeah, I'm going to take some time once I finish to look back through the post-it notes and what I came up with on this live. Hmm. Yeah, I think I've got a lot of stuff here already that's covering my theme of completion, which is great.
How are
Hey,
you?
Ginny, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you keeping?
I'm good.
That's good to hear. I just said I'd pop on there because we were chatting about the young lad there,
Yeah.
and he came to me last weekend, and he reckons he puts it down to spending too much time with his mother when he was younger. That he got too much of a feminine side.
Hmm.
I said, "How did you come up with that?" now he reckons, do you know, he's an only child, and myself and his mother parted company when he was very young. So he'd spend a lot of time going shopping
Yeah.
on holidays and so forth with his mother. And he reckons that that's where he got in touch with his feminine side. And I don't understand it really,
Yeah.
but that's what he was saying. And so anyway, he told me that he was bi, and he was with a man, as far as I know, the last couple of months. But he informed me on the weekend just gone that he finished with his partner or whatever,
Hmm.
and he's with a young lady now.
Hmm.
So, to be honest with you, I don't know whether he's just really experimenting. To be honest with you, I don't know what he wants,
Yeah.
and I don't think he knows what he wants either. But I want to, I suppose, not guide him, but give him a helping hand along the way through the journey that he's on.
Yeah.
It's the first time that as I said before, it's the first time that I've known somebody as bi. But I'm an older gentleman, and in the olden days there was none of that. Well, obviously there was, but
Yeah.
it wasn't known, if you know what I mean. It wasn't. People wouldn't expose themselves.
Hmm.
But I suppose, what can I say? I probably struggling with it at the moment to get my own head around it. Do you know the
Yeah.
fact that he doesn't know what
Mhm.
he wants himself? I think, do you know, it's funny, you know. It's all new to me, as I said. I'd just like to hear your thoughts, maybe. If you have any more tips to give myself.
Yeah, of course. So what I will say is that I think the talking about it and the conversations is probably quite new for your son as well. And
Yeah,
I've been realizing for myself that, labels are great for kind of externalizing something so that you can talk about it and see if you can understand it more. But sometimes, those labels don't always fit immediately, and that can be confusing as well because, at one point you might say this label fits, and another point you say actually it doesn't fit now that I have more information. And changing that story can be difficult as well. So what I would say is um, try not from your perspective to spend too much time trying to figure out the full story of it, but take the pieces that your son gives you and sort of sit with those. You don't need to understand it, but just maybe just listen to what he's sharing as that being like the fact, you
probably
know.
be a listening ear. Probably just listen, don't speak would be more appropriate, probably, would it?
It's
For myself.
Yeah, so it's listening, it's validating, that you kind of see him for what he's sharing with you. And I think, you know, I think in particular, us people in Ireland can get very defensive when it feels like someone is explaining to us or questioning why we are explaining something the way we explain it.
Yeah.
Because I think, we haven't been great as a nation at uh, learning the skills to do that well.
I totally agree, 100% with you on that one.
And so I don't want to say too much about your son's comment about, the spending too much time with his mother and kind of that feminine side, because that's his journey to figure out. But what I will say is, from my perspective, we all have a masculine side and a feminine side, and it's not necessarily about sexuality or gender. You know, if you think of like the traditional gender roles, we all have to do those things. If you live on your own, you have to do your own cooking and cleaning and
Yeah,
tidying the house. But you also have to do your own work and everything. So everyone is both masculine and feminine in some way, but we will have different exposure to those sides of us at different times of our lives. Um, and part of this is going to be that your son is trying to figure out himself as well. So, a week from now, the story could be very different when he sits with what he's shared so far. You know, it's like building up a puzzle, but you're only finding the pieces week by week, which makes it difficult to see like what the big picture is at the end.
I totally get you. Yeah. No, I take that on board. Yeah, it does. Now that I hear you say that, it makes complete sense. Oh, I see Richard is here as well. I meant to say hello to him. Richard is a man from England there as well. Don't be afraid to follow Kiki there, Richard. A nice young man too. But yeah, I take what you said on board. It makes complete sense. And coming from you that has gone through similar journey, it makes complete sense coming from you to know. Yeah, look, it's just one of these things you go through in life, and the fact that I haven't dealt with it before, I'm a stranger to it all. It's just
Yeah, it's tough because it's
takes
a
a
lot
bit
of
of
information and you're trying to build your own picture and understanding of it yourself as well. And it's only when you get more information as you go that you realize, oh, this piece here should be over there. And, you know, you're building your own picture as well. Um, that's why I started doing these sticky notes when I'm doing my lives, because I'm coming up with ideas, but then at the end of the video, I've forgotten what it is. So I've been putting
I
them.
missed it. What did you come up with there? I only came on just as you were. I think you were writing them down, maybe.
Yeah, so I decided I wanted, while I was doing my live, to just write down ideas as I was thinking about them and talking about them, so that when I'm finished my live, I can look back at what I had actually talked about and
All right.
bring it
Yeah.
forward. Because I found that when I finished my live, I put it away and that was it. And um, all of the conversation I was having on the live and all of the ideas I was exploring were kind of disappearing. So this is sort of my version of taking the live and making those puzzle pieces. Like I was just talking about, like these are some ideas I had about, not ideas, but some reflections I had about previous lives I did, old hobbies,
It's a
or
great idea in itself, what you're doing there, writing down the ideas.
Hmm. And this is kind of why I'm getting that puzzle metaphor myself, because when you have it all in your head, it can be hard to see how things relate or don't relate, because like some of these don't relate at all to each other, but they all
Yeah.
came from the TikTok live and they all kind of branch out into different places. So the ideas are kind of just whatever comes up in conversation that I'm sharing that I want to do something with later in some way. Like uh, this one about the TikTok lives I'd mentioned. When I started TikTok live, I built Lego. Also, these sticky notes are not very sticky; they keep falling. But I was just trying to like figure out how TikTok lives worked and the technology of it, I suppose. So I tried doing different things to see which ones worked, and now I'm doing these chatty ones where I talk and come up with ideas.
And I seen you had a video there. I don't know when you put it up. It just came up there this morning, I think. You were talking about dreaming, and every morning eh, after a dream, you write it down and try to make sense of it.
Yeah, I try
Eh,
to if I can. Yeah. If I can remember them, sometimes they just end and they seem to disappear. You remember there was a dream there, but what was in it can be difficult. But sometimes there's dreams that like stick with you for some reason.
I had a dream. It's probably about 2 weeks ago, and again, it was the son in the dream, and he was getting married
Yeah.
to a. I I came to the conclusion that that was my own mind telling me that that's what I wanted maybe in life,
Yeah.
and that I'm not going to get it. That's the conclusion I came to.
Yeah. So, two interesting things that came out of there. The first one was what you were saying
To
about
a
it
woman, Richard.
being
Sorry,
your.
a woman.
There were 2 points that I wanted to say in response to your dream. The first one you mentioned about, realizing that that was your own expectation, I suppose. That's exactly true. There's going to be that subconscious element of this is what I was thinking. Um, what was the other one then? Oh yeah, the other one then you mentioned, that you won't get it. That's not necessarily true. That is that is a belief that you've put together based on the dream that you've had and the world outside the dream, and you're trying to make sense of that, which is, we all do that. But I suppose that's what the danger is of reading too much into dreams, is kind of getting stuck in those places. But at the end of the day, the dreams are just revealing what's kind of on your mind. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's true or fact. It doesn't mean that it's wrong either. It's just something that's on your mind. And those dreams where you're interacting with people in the real world can be they're very revealing because you can apply them directly to what's going on. The dreams about more abstract stuff, if you imagined being in a TV show or something, they can be a bit more tricky to try and figure out. Um, but the fact that you had a dream like that means obviously it's on your mind, of course.
Yeah.
The dreams don't necessarily need to mean anything other than kind of telling you what is like big on your mind at that time. And it's those kind of ones, the fact that you remember it and you're able to talk about it now is means it's vivid enough that that's the case. So those are the kind of dreams that we can learn from because we remember them so well and we kind of know where they fit in to the story a little bit.
Yeah,
But this is the thing about when someone comes out to us or the world changes a little bit, we have expectations that are not necessarily wrong to have, but they kind of shift our worldview a little bit. That we think, oh, this isn't going to happen, maybe, and that can be destabilizing. Um, a funny one, like last night, I was talking to my husband and I made some comment about our ages, and he said, "So I've always been 4 months younger than him, 3 months younger than him." But last night he thought that I was older than him, and like it's a silly thing, you know. There's only 3 months between us, but he was saying it's just so weird because he spent so long thinking I was older, even though I know like 10 years ago he knows
it's very
that.
strange.
Yeah,
What would
it's
you
just
put that down to?
sorry.
What would you put that down to?
So I wouldn't put it down to anything because, like, logically, he knows we're born in the same year and that his birthday comes first in the year before mine. So there was never any like hidden
And he
agenda
was full
there. It
sure
was
that you were. Sorry, I'm mixed up now.
that I was
You're
older.
young, older
He
than
thought I
him,
was older.
but you're younger,
Yeah.
and you had to correct him on that.
Yeah, I just had to point out the obvious, which
And
is
what
my
what
birthday is
was
later in the
his
year.
reply?
Sorry.
What was his reply to you when you pointed that out?
He he kind of was like, well, yeah, obviously that I'm younger because my birthday happens later in the year than his, and we're born in the same year. But there's another part of him that just had built a story up that I was older than him for some reason. And I don't know what that was, but he just said that it was weird to have that realization because he knows like 10 years ago that 10, 14, 15 years ago when we started seeing each other, he would have been very acutely aware that he was older. But just over the years, that kind of information slips away because you don't think of it. You think of it a lot when you're 19 and age is important.
And I didn't realize that you were married.
Yeah.
It's good to hear that you a nice young couple there. You clash. I don't want to upset anyone, but you class yourself as bi.
Yeah, I do.
You're married to a man.
Yeah.
Does that change your what's the
Status.
word I'm looking?
um,
Yeah.
it
Yes.
doesn't change it from my perspective, but it changes the way that other people view me, because other people will see I'm married to a man for X number of years, therefore I must be gay.
You're a gay man. A gay man. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I.
that's not necessarily true. And, there's lots of things like that about life. We make assumptions based on the little information that we have about people. Like my husband making an assumption that I was older than him, even though all of the evidence was there to show that I was younger.
It's all very interesting, and as I said, I'm learning about it all, and it's great coming on here and talking to you because you give me some great information on the whole topic of sexuality and all that. And
I'm glad it's helpful.
thank, thank you very much. I'm going to leave you now, and I'm sure I'll be on again someday. And you take care, and take care of that husband of yours as well.
Yes. Thanks, Denny. Take care.
Thank
Have a
you
good
again.
day.
Take care. You too.
Great. Okay, I'm going to pick up some of my dropped sticky notes. I wish they were slightly more sticky, as they're just falling off a bit too much. That kind of is a good way to wrap up today, because I was kind of getting to the end of my thoughts about my theme of completion anyway. I guess the next thing that I'm thinking is, what am I going to do with all these sticky notes now? Well, I've got a few routines, habits, rituals, whatever word you want to put on it. I like to say rituals because there's a purpose to it. It's not just eating breakfast or brushing my teeth, but it is journaling in some way. So I will incorporate these so that I can kind of add them back into the way that I work during the week and build up my content and ideas and projects as well. So I'm going to go and do some of those things. By the way, thanks, Richard, for the heart. When I get into conversations, I can get a bit lost from the chat. So I'm going to finish up for today. I've got a bunch of other stuff to do, but thanks for joining me. And I'll be back next week. Normally I do my lives on Tuesdays, but I did it on Thursday this week because it felt right to do it on Thursday. So I'll see what the theme for next week comes out to be, and it'll either be Tuesday or Thursday that I do my lives, because on Wednesday I stream on Twitch. So thanks for joining, everyone. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.